Good morning, everyone, and welcome to Storytime with Rob. So I didn't have time to do this at home today, so I decided to come into work and took a spare minute of time here to do this today, and I'm glad you're here with me. Today's story is a good one. I really like it mainly because of the history behind it. I really enjoyed learning about this individual, and I think you'll feel the same when I'm done. This one's called Willem's Passion. More than anything, Willem wanted to be an evangelist. He was only 25 a century ago, but already he'd been an art dealer, language teacher, and a bookseller, and also very unsuccessful in love. But more than all the paintings and all the words and all the books and all the women, Willem wanted to devote himself to his fellow man and to the Word of God. It was this passion that brought young Willem in the spring of 1879 to the coal fields of southern Belgium. It was there in this little mining town that Willem outlined the rest of the story on the back of a faded envelope. Perhaps it was this young minister's total selflessness that first captured the respect of the miners in that tiny Bornage community. In a mine disaster, scores of the villagers were injured, and no one fought harder to save them than he did. Day and night, Willem nursed the wounded, fed the hungry, clothed the poor. He even scraped the slag heaps to give his people fuel. After the rubble was cleared and the dead were buried and the sick were made well, the townspeople turned to the Dutchman who had healed their physical hurts and adopted him as their spiritual leader. Every Sunday they overflowed Willem's services to hear this unassuming man preach the literal Word of God. And then lightning struck. A visiting church official discovered Willem living in a simple hut, dressed in an old soldier's coat and trousers made of sacking. When he was asked Willem what he had done with his salary, Willem answered simply that he'd given it to the miners. The church official told Willem that he looked more miserable than the people that he taught. Why had he given everything away? Willem asked, wasn't this what Christ had intended for his disciples? There's such a thing as too literally interpreting the scriptures, the church official argued. He wanted to say that the conventions Willem had destroyed would take years to rebuild. Willem was dismissed from the service of the church that very day. He was devastated. The career that had meant everything was suddenly nothing. There followed weeks of despair. Then, one afternoon, Willem noticed an old miner. He was bending beneath the enormous weight of a full sack of coal. In that instant, Willem felt the desperation of these people and recognized that it would always be his own. Fumbling through his pockets, the Dutchman pulled out a tattered envelope and then a pencil. And he began to sketch the weary figure that had moved him so. That first drawing was a crude one, but he tried over and over and over again. Beginning that day, Willem was to capture for the world the torment, the triumph, and dignity of the people that he loved. If Willem had failed as a minister, there was now a new passion, a new purpose. And the people he was allowed to teach, he was able to reach through art. And in the process, he immortalized them, and they him. For the end of Willem's career as a clergyman motivated a ministry more monumental than he had ever dreamed. Because the preacher who wasn't to be became the artist the world would know as Vincent Willem van Gogh. And now you know the rest of the story. That's one of the favorites of mine. I didn't know that history behind Vincent van Gogh, who's one of the most famous impressionistic artists of all time. His paintings, of course, sold in the hundreds of millions of dollars. And appreciate you joining me today. Hope you have a great week. Until tomorrow, be safe.